Welcome back to another discussion here on the Champions Path, a platform for all things simulation and trading for our champions in the military, law enforcement, and other first responder roles. This will be the first episode in a series called Artificial Intelligent Virtual Humans and Simulation Based Training. The focus of this series is to discuss the design and usage of AI virtual agents, as I believe AI will be a very important aspect of future software and simulation training. The integration of realistic virtual human behavior and cognition will open the door to a much wider application of current virtual simulators. Those that are based on strategic and critical thinking, decision making, and life saving tactics and techniques. I'm here today with Chih Pu Dai, an assistant professor out of the University of Hawaii in Manoa, whose research is focused on game and simulation based learning that incorporates immersive and interactive design features and artificial intelligence. Professor, thank you for taking the time to meet with me today.
Thank you for having me, Jared. It's great
Yeah, I
to be here.
appreciate it. If you don't mind, before we begin, can you give a brief summary of how you entered the field of game and simulation-based learning, and maybe further describe what your current research is?
Sure. So again, my name is Chih Pu Dai, and I've been teaching for the past several years, and I've been teaching uh, in different countries in Taiwan, the Philippines, Thailand, Burkina Faso. And while I was teaching, I observed students struggling in uh, interacting with the real world context. Just when they're in the classroom, I think they more contacts and interactions with the help of different technologies. So I started to think about how we can support that areas, and I
Hmm.
started to look into games and simulations because they can replicate the real world context.
Hmm.
And I got into my doctoral program at Florida State University. They have great instructional systems and learning technologies program. And in the program, I started to develop and learn knowledge and skills on more on simulation based learning and game based learning. And
Hmm.
gradually, we realized that the interactions in game based and simulation based learning included with virtual agents and virtual humans are
Hmm.
still limited. And we
Hmm.
started to approach the use of artificial intelligence to augment and to enhance those interactivity to be more personalized and meaningful to the learners. So I
Hmm.
started to dig more into this area, uh, including artificial intelligence, simulation-based learning, game-based learning, and virtual agents and virtual humans.
Hmm. That's exciting. And before we dive into, maybe the technicals of AI, I'd like to start with defining, what is an AI virtual human, as well as, what are some of the benefits of integrating these assets into simulation training software.
That's an excellent question. So, artificial intelligence or AI is not new concept. It has
Hmm.
been there, and people have um, tried to explore that area for decades. Since 1956. There was a definition proposed in a summit or conference held at
Hmm.
Dartmouth College, and the definition back then was that any intelligence or any human behaviors can be so precisely replicated by a machine in principle. That is the basic definition of AI. So anything that human can do, a machine can
Hmm.
replicate that competencies or that behaviors into their interactions and into their functionality. And that's the basic definition of AI. And
Hmm.
recently, with the growing power of computers, more machine can do more and in a more efficient way. So AI has scaled up to be implemented and applied in so many different areas uh, that we did not realize prior to this growing power of computers.
Hmm. And so, yeah, I don't know anything about AI. I have assumptions about AI, and my perception is its usage. in virtual simulation training would be to create a much more realistic interaction with a virtual NPC and non-player character avatar, such as conversationally, the AI's interaction within the environmental factors, giving that sense of realism to the landscape. Um, Maybe even a persistent experience as to progress through a training scenario with the AI's adaptability, um, and learning style. So is my obviously it's similar, but would you say my assumption is accurate for AI integration for the virtual humans?
Yeah, that sounds
Hmm.
pretty on the direction that AI
Hmm.
can achieve, and it it's not just about AI or the technologies, but we also need to think about the design and the
Hmm.
rationale behind what is being created. So we don't
Hmm.
really just implement any AI technologies or technologies into our context, whether it's K-12 education or military. Um,
Hmm.
just expect that they would do the work. We should
Hmm.
carefully analyze the context and design the technology that
Hmm.
adapt to the learners and our
Hmm.
target audience, and that
Hmm.
um, include different types of the technologies or AI being implemented. Some in some
Hmm.
contexts you can use different types of AI. So in my prior studies, I classified different types of AI. There are certain AI that use script to achieve what is being uh, targeted, and there are certain
Hmm.
AI use rule based um, technologies. So it's
Hmm.
more with the different branches and different interactions
Hmm.
predefined in
Hmm.
the virtual humans or
Hmm.
avatar in the environment. And there are also module-based AI. In other words, they implement different models behind the virtual humans. There's our
Hmm.
psychological modeling, knowledge modeling, and different personnel and personality and characteristics of the virtual human. Just like all of us, we all demonstrate different personalities and interaction
Hmm.
traits. And
Hmm.
there are also natural language processing based and machine learning based artificial intelligence that use different parameters to define the interactions or define the knowledge they have to interact
Hmm.
with the learners. So it's well designed artificial intelligence or
Hmm.
algorithm that can achieve what we want to achieve based on the resources that we have.
Hmm. Yeah, and depending on the design and rationale, are the algorithms created separately and blended, or are they developed together to create a holistic AI capabilities? Because you had mentioned scripting versus rules. Now, is scripting more branching, and rules are like statistical probabilities of action?
Yeah, right.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, it seems quite complex, and from my first experiences with AI, I enjoy playing video games,
Mhm.
and I used to play this RPG game called Elder Scrolls Skyrim, and the original game had a very linear conversational path where you would interact with an NPC, and then there would be some uh, options for dialogue. And though all those very blatantly obvious you were speaking to an NPC, it was still very engaging. And many years later, I saw a mod that had come out that could be installed that used a large language model for the NPCs to now respond to actual players' questions and comments. And for example, the companion that would follow you around um, would help fight, and it wasn't just another body to throw at the enemy, because it essentially became like a friend. And as corny as that sounds, it was just the ability to speak to that individual and ask questions and shoot the breeze while you're traveling to your next mission, that really put it on the next level of realism. Um, so you integrate human behavior and cognition into the AI models, not just a chatbot. and have some interesting results in human interaction for the simulation. So, with these advancements, are you seeing this sense of realism in the interactions between humans and AI virtual humans?
In terms of the realism of the
Mm-hmm.
virtual humans in the simulation, I think um, what you described in terms of
Mm-hmm.
the companions in the simulation based environment was really exciting, and that
Mm-hmm.
sounds really interesting. And that is the direction I think we also want to achieve in education technology and any skills training. We want to also having a companion for students along their learning journey. And
Mm-hmm.
I think through natural language processing or machine learning and different psychological models behind the virtual humans, it's definitely
Mm-hmm.
adding those realism and immersive effects to the interactions to
Mm-hmm.
users in comparison to the traditional adaptive learning. And the algorithm can be also more interactive in terms of their
Mm-hmm.
functionality. So I think that really also adds to the realism and interactivity in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the experience.
Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of papers to comb through out of the U.S. National Science Foundation. So I think a great starting point would be your paper titled "Designing Artificial Intelligence in Virtual Humans for Simulation-Based Training." And I really want to start with the a bottom-up approach. So with the architecture itself, and you explored the architecture around the design and usability of AI virtual humans. And from my understanding, the thesis was using AI integrated virtual humans to support conversational and interactive training in VR, which would give teachers a realistic or near realistic experience in a learning environment. So I'd like to, take this time to discuss the architecture. So if you don't mind, let's break down the technical aspects of it real quick. And I'm curious as to what platform a company would use to develop an AI virtual human on.
Great. Yeah, so that
Mm-hmm.
project was the research project that I did when I was a doctoral student at Florida State. And it was a
Mm-hmm.
lab led by Professor Feng Feng Ke at Florida State. And in that lab, we used Open Simulator. So it was the vision of Professor Kerr that we want to have a sustainable and scalable environment so that we
Mm-hmm.
can customize and make it or package it to deliver to many other different contexts when they are trying to train or facilitate teacher learning. So
Mm-hmm.
in OpenSim, we implemented different virtual agents and virtual humans. So in that environment, we started with more branching type of artificial intelligence, and gradually we realized that we want to add more realism, as you mentioned, and more
Mm-hmm.
interactivity in that experience. So we seek the already existing large language
Mm-hmm.
models, and at that time
Mm-hmm.
it was you know GPT was not really well known technologies
Mm-hmm.
yet, not
Right.
comparison to
Mm-hmm.
today. So we started
Right.
to experiment a little bit about that large language model. So because it's
Mm-hmm.
open simulator, it's open sim virtual reality environment, it give us
Mm-hmm.
more open door or leeway to
Mm-hmm.
implement different technologies integrated into that environment to create the learning or training
Mm-hmm.
experience for teachers, teaching
Mm-hmm.
assistants, or pre-service teachers. So we localized and adapted the large language model to train them with the classroom data so that they can talk um, the
Mm-hmm.
way that we want them to talk and interact with our target audiences. So
Mm-hmm.
with that approach, we train with different data set and constantly adjust and refine the model so that
Mm-hmm.
they can talk either the content and demonstrate the different personality and traits based on their
Mm-hmm.
large model capabilities to interact with the target audiences or
Mm-hmm.
learners.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that open source platform. Is that just a platform where you develop the AI core and then export maybe over to a game engine like UE5 or something like that to map out the visual representation, or is all of that found within the open source platform?
Oh, yeah. Great. Thank you for the question. That's a great question. So
Hmm.
in OpenSim, there's no, I think they don't have default capabilities
Mm,
for machine learning or natural language processing when the
mm,
time we use it. But of course it constantly develops, so maybe they have it now. But at
mm,
that time we integrated third party and external API and then make them
mm,
communicate with each other. So every time when a
mm,
facilitator or a learner, teacher learner log into
mm,
OpenSim, the facilitator has
mm,
to activate the third party
mm,
API or the third party algorithm that is being trained to
mm,
connect with the OpenSim itself. So OpenSim
mm,
itself is a real time. It's sort of like metaverse, if I put it in that way. So every time can log in and interact in real time, and we can
mm,
design activities in OpenSim. But generally, they just
mm,
we just interact naturally, just like what we're doing now, but in an immersive
mm,
virtual world. So
mm,
OpenSim itself does not have any, predefined activities or experience. It is being defined by the designer or the instruction designer or the programmer. So
mm,
that communication was what makes the artificial intelligence possible and available in
mm,
OpenSim, and through because it's open, so that we can implement third-party models into
mm,
that
mm.
environment. Yeah.
Makes sense. So when integrating the expectation misconception mechanism, making the conversation more realistic, can you encode cultural or language barriers into the models to make like conversations more realistic? And the reason why I ask is because obviously in the military, a lot of deployments go to countries where there's cultural barriers, religious barriers, language barriers, and being able to replicate that with a AI virtual human would be incredibly beneficial, I believe.
Yes, I totally agree,
Hmm.
and I think that's an excellent question and excellent
Hmm.
exploration. And we, of course, designed the virtual humans and avatar with cultural diversity. That's one direction
Hmm.
we're trying to go in the lab at further state.
Hmm.
Um, and they're fabulous. My colleagues and other students are
Hmm.
did that, and they represent really well in terms of different
Hmm.
appearances for diverse students, their culture, their you know
Hmm.
identity and personality. And culture doesn't only demonstrate in terms of their appearances, also demonstrated by the way they talk or the way they interact
Hmm.
with the teacher trainee or teacher
Hmm.
learner. So that is definitely one
Hmm.
way. And it's all depends. So in terms of their personality and how they interact, it's in terms of determined by the modeling. And also if it's machine learning based language model, it also determined by the
Hmm.
data, the training data that we feed them.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that is really important. We need to make this more inclusive. If it's for our purpose for military, maybe
Hmm.
there are purposes that they should be trying to interact with multicultural, different multicultural individuals or multicultural backgrounds. So
Hmm.
the inclusivity of the training data or the purposefully included the training data with multicultural backgrounds and traits is
Hmm.
really important in this type of exploration.
Yeah, yeah. So here's a scenario that may be a good discussion for AI and the topic that we're currently on. And there's a ton of scenarios that I could think of that would benefit from AI in the military and law enforcement, security firms, EMT, and for the military. So imagine you're in a different country. And to be successful in your mission, you need to build relationships with important local people, like community or religious leaders. So a key leader engagement is like a special meeting where you talk and listen to individuals with the goals of building trust and cooperation. So you might, need to share information, and they may need to share some information about bad guys, or you're trying to aid in stimulating the local economy through employment, what have you. So I can see the application of this cognitive think software, um, where a team is conducting a virtual simulated key leader engagement with a virtual AI human uh, who holds influence and can, practice building those relationships and gather information, even possibly influencing behavior. I definitely can see an application for that.
There are different applications to train, different soft skills in terms of building
Mm-hmm.
trust or counseling or negotiation from different
Mm-hmm.
companies and applications. So those soft skills are really suitable to be trained when they are interacting with
Mm-hmm.
virtual entities, virtual humans, virtual agents, coupled or augmented by artificial intelligence to achieve really
Mm-hmm.
realistic and immersive experience. So I think what you
Mm-hmm.
described is really exciting. But in our context, we also apply similar, but the techniques and the core principles are similar. It just applies into
Mm-hmm.
different contexts, or our context is teacher learning. So we apply the large language models and the different psychological
Mm-hmm.
states and traits to design the virtual humans when they are practicing math and science teaching. And math
Mm-hmm.
and science teaching are unique because they are it's a way of thinking. So the pre-service teachers, they have to practice how they can engage students in a way to think scientifically or to think mathematically, and
Mm-hmm.
that goal is ambitious. So uh, the
Mm-hmm.
data that we use to train is from ambitious science teaching. So pre-service teachers are trying to practice engagement, how to engage students into their scientific talk, and how to build consensus between different virtual humans, virtual students,
Mm-hmm.
uh, into talking about the scientific phenomenon observed.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, the most practiced scientific phenomena was in biology, in fungi, and
Mm-hmm.
we found that that topic did really well in terms of interacting with pre-service teachers and help them to
Mm-hmm.
either build confidence and uh, pursue knowledge in teaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Compared to traditional training methods, or even traditional simulation training methods, i.e., mannequins, virtual NPCs, role players. Um, what are some of the unique advantages that AI offers?
Yes, so I think that's an
Mm-hmm.
excellent, another excellent question. So in our old, we did design based research. In other words, there are different iterations when we are trying to create a knowledge in this area. So we first experimented with the branching type of
Mm-hmm.
virtual human or NPC, and they also did role
Mm-hmm.
play. But that is really not really cost effective. You always have a human and when I was facilitating those sessions with teaching assistants or pre-service teachers, I was really busy in the background. So I have to, call out every different branches in turn based on my
Mm-hmm.
judgment when the teaching assistants or pre-service teacher interacting in the context. So I have to call out
Mm-hmm.
different reactions from the virtual students, and it's just not, really
Mm-hmm.
natural. And sometimes those teaching assistants or pre-service teachers ignored the, you know, the occurrences or the behaviors demonstrated by the virtual human because I
Mm-hmm.
think, or we conjecture that it's not as realistic as their
Mm-hmm.
real, real world interactions, or maybe they're focusing too
Mm-hmm.
much on the materials that are going to be presented. However, in a second
Mm-hmm.
iteration with artificial intelligence, we observed that teachers notice more in terms of the students' utterances, and they address those utterances and of course, more systematic research should be conducted in this area. But that
Hmm.
was based on observation facilitating those sessions. So there are
Hmm.
differences between the interactions between the teacher learner and the virtual students in terms of
Hmm.
their noticing to their behaviors and the way they respond to the virtual students. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point because there are current military and law enforcement systems out right now with the capabilities that can run either video scenarios or VR AR scenarios, and a lot of them have that same structure where the instructor has to initiate those branching options
Mhm.
through these prefabricated paths that is forced by the instructor, and it definitely I've seen it pulls the trainees out of the immersion, and could potentially be an impediment on proper training and skills transfer. So that's a really interesting point. Um, and you were talking a little bit about the results. What's the feedback from the end users? Are they experiencing the realistic interactions in their respective environments?
Yes, so we still keep constantly evolving or improving the
Hmm.
realism and interactivity, and where we did design based research, so there are different cycles of the product improvement, or intervention improvement. But overall, when teacher learners are interacting with the AI powered virtual students. They found
Hmm.
it really interesting and helpful. And another of my recent preceding papers in Kai conference suggested that they
Hmm.
value the uh, the environment being built, and they
Hmm.
immerse themselves in practicing interactive endeavors with the virtual students, and they constantly ask,
Hmm.
are there human behind them? That was the
Hmm.
one of the most frequent question asked by the teacher learner. So
Hmm.
they actually
Interesting.
cannot, yeah,
Yeah.
they actually question about,
Yeah.
whether it's real human behind them. So they did not
Hmm.
really distinguish
Interesting.
between the occurrences of virtual students
Hmm.
in
Right.
comparison to human actor. So I think that was an
Hmm.
exciting observation from the teacher learners, and
Hmm.
yeah, they're mostly uh, positive, but of course there are always room for improvement. So we're constantly improving
Yeah.
the interactivity
Hmm.
in terms of how authentic or how sustainable the conversation could be.
Hmm. That's exciting. Although, I was just discussing this the other day that technology advances much more rapidly than regulations. So, I want to discuss the elephant in the room, and ask, do you think that AI could take over the world like Skynet or the Matrix agents?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, um, I cannot predict that in terms of whether it can
Yeah.
really take over the world, but
Hmm.
I truly believe the capabilities of the development of artificial intelligence. I don't think it's a bubble, so it's real. It's really developing, and it's really enhancing or augmenting our capabilities as human. And I think that is the point that we want to address. We should responsibly and ethically integrated artificial intelligence in terms of, but not too much regulation on, the development of the technology itself. But we need to. I think what we have been doing is human-centered artificial intelligence. So human is always, it's in terms of we need to consider the human user when we're designing and developing artificial intelligence. They are designed to augment human capabilities and humanity rather than destroy us as a humanity. So I think that's the point. The thing I want to raise here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely moral and ethical considerations because I did see a presentation a while ago on the development of an autonomous AI program, essentially being raised as a child, learning through its own perception of reality. And it was really, really interesting. And it was quite, the program was quite inquisitive. So it definitely made me ask the question: are there moral and ethical considerations that are followed when developing artificial intelligent virtual humans?
Hmm. Well, there, you know, definitely has to be moral and ethical considerations, and any technologist or technologist that we designed, it's not as risky as those other large technology companies, but we also consider how inclusive it is and how we can benefit all learners in terms of their interaction with the AI technologies being designed. So you know ethical issues is broad. It should whether
Sure.
they destroy us is one consideration, or how inclusive and how beneficial for all learners to interact with those technology and take advantage of those technologies in another consideration. So all these different aspects of ethical issues are key to our design and development. So yeah, that those definitely are being considered, and how we can ethically and responsibly design those technologies to benefit our society for public good and for all learners to use this amazing technology.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely exciting. And you know, it makes me wonder: has there, in a simulation training environment, has there ever have you experienced a situation that appeared like AI virtual humans would be beneficial, but turned out that it was not very necessary?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. Let me think. So in the early testing stage, I mean, technology is neutral, and it's like any other technologies. They can be used for good, they can be used for bad. They just really human. Yeah, we're human, and AI are try to replicate humans, so there are different ways they can be used. Just like internet, internet is neutral, but you can use it for evil purposes, you can use it for good purposes to help you learn. It can also be used to harm or hurt other people through your opinions, or how you manipulate those discourse and narrative in our society. So it's just about how humans use it. But in our early testing stages, we found out if there are no filters being implemented in AI technology, if we want to use them in the classroom, they may come up with the languages that are not appropriate in our context. For example, they talk about drugs, they talk about violence. So those things, if not filtered, or the original language model was not trained with the localized data set that we want them to talk in a way that we want them to do, it can be bad and harmful, and it can potentially be dangerous. Yes.
Mm, interesting. And that's all from human input. And those filters would, I guess, go back to the design and rationale, um, and the script and rules
Yeah.
implemented within the AI core.
Hmm. And mostly
Interesting.
the training data.
All right, let's go into the future of training, right? What advancements in software or hardware are you most excited about that will aid in the advancement of AI and virtual humans?
Mhm. Yes, so I think it's a summary of whatever we have been discussed so far. Actually, those are all very exciting areas, including the algorithm development and the modeling and the ethical and responsible use of the technology. So, yeah, the future of AI is bright. With all the possibilities, and it's still growing. I think um, the human centered AI, and how we can design an algorithm that really achieve what we want to achieve in a good way, and how we can avoid the harmful effects or aspects of the technology. Um, yeah, I think those are the the areas and the new project that we're developing focuses on how we can use AI to facilitate and support local students in Hawaii to uh, study computer science and in freshman courses. So we consider place-based learning because it's Hawaii. So there are a lot of indigenous or native Hawaiian knowledge already existed. So we want to leverage those knowledge and use AI to help students to leverage those knowledge and how we can reimagine education when students are learning in classroom in their house when they are interacting with artificial intelligence. So the future of the classroom may not look the same like what we experience today, like teacher standing in the center of the classroom, or sometimes they walk around. That's more you know democratic way of conducting their classroom. They, you know, pay attention to individual students. But with their technologies, each student has their own individual companions or agent, just like you mentioned at the beginning when you're playing the game, right? You have a companion uh, facilitate your journey along your gameplay. It can also be replicated in the classroom. Individual students has their own agents, so teachers' capabilities are freed up. They can have more time to attend to individual needs in the classroom, and students are adapted and scaffolded. If I, put it in that way, uh, there was the theory developed by Vygotsky in early 70s or late 70s, 1978, um, when students are being scaffolded at their uh, appropriate development stage or knowledge stage, because every students are different in terms of their knowledge or where they're coming from, their prior knowledge and where they're going. So those AI technologies or AI agent can detect and sense what the student's current state are and return the possible support for that individual students, and teacher can use the dashboard to monitor where the students are. And traditionally when teachers are doing this in the classroom, it's really exhausted, and every time when I was in the classroom, my brain just constantly analyzing where the students are and what did they say previously 10 minutes ago, when they're where they're going, 10 minutes later, where should I scaffold them or support them to the state that I want them to do. And that is really cognitive demanding. My brain just constantly working in the classroom. So with the help of AI, teachers' capabilities can be augmented and supported, and students can achieve the learning state that is appropriate to them. And I think that's very exciting for the future of AI in terms of teaching and learning and training.
Yeah, yeah. That I and let me see if I understand this correctly. This is more of the adaptive learning model, right? Where it's individual, personalized training. It adapts to the individual's skill sets, and when it detects um, an increase in skill capability, the challenge of the simulation increases. When it detects maybe a plateau or ceiling or threshold, that the um, trainee or student is having a hard time advancing, it lowers the difficulty level, staying within that, I don't know what the technical term is, habitable zone,
Hmm.
until it can foster a the education transfer over to the trainee, where they can then hit a higher PR or personal record within the education system. Is that correct?
Yes, and that is
Mm-hmm.
correct. And in certain way, it is adaptive learning. But
Mm-hmm.
what we'd experience is that traditionally adaptive learning seems very mechanic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I believe most of the international students that here they took GRE, or maybe any student that want to go to grad school should, in the old
Mm-hmm.
days we have to take GRE, and those are adaptive. So the test or the question you see is based on the question you answer. So if you're more in a novice zone, they will
Mm-hmm.
recommend the the easier question to you. That was my
Mm-hmm.
experience when I took GRE test in the old days. And yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
is adaptive learning and in a more mechanic way. But with AI,
Mm-hmm.
those interactivities and or those experience can be more, you know, more nuanced, and the
Mm-hmm.
experience can be more realistic and immersive. I think that's the difference. And the students zone of proximal development, that was the term
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
that we're
Mm-hmm.
using. So can be more nuanced detected, and
Yeah.
the support can be more uh, appropriate for the individual students. And that is the concept. But yes, it's basically adaptive learning, but in a more you know exciting. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I don't want to use
Yeah.
more. I don't want
Personal.
to compare them,
Yeah.
but it's
Sure.
it. Yeah,
And you said approximate of development is the appropriate term?
yeah. The zone of proximal development.
Zone. Okay. Of approximate development. All right. Thank you. Before we conclude, is there any other topics that I may have missed that you would like to discuss?
I think we cover a lot of
Mm-hmm.
exciting things, and that it also helped my brain to think about the excitement of the future of
Yeah.
artificial intelligence, adaptive learning, and
Mm-hmm.
immersive learning or simulation training. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm just really excited about this area.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, but also we need to consider different aspects when we're using this technology. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was really fun to talk about these
Yeah,
things.
awesome. Yeah, exciting. I'd like to send you, just some maybe thought experiments on, military law enforcement, first responder implementation, and I'd love to have you come back and maybe we can go get into the weeds and discuss a specific topic. Um, but thank you again for coming on and opening this discussion up. I feel the use of AI is going to really be a game changer with simulation systems, especially in the military, law enforcement, and other first responder training evolutions.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Mm-hmm. All right, Chih Pu Dai. Thank you.
Thank you.